Now, as some of you may or may not know, this past October 18th marks the 25-year anniversary of the Nintendo Entertainment System in North America. Back on October 18th of 1985, the first NES systems were released in what we now call the deluxe set version in a test market in New York. And it was such a huge success that later in the next year they did a countrywide release. And well, the rest is all history. And I figured to commemorate the NES's 25-year anniversary, I'd talk a little bit about a few of my past experiences I had as a kid when I got my first NES system and whatnot. I was born in, well, about a year after the NES came out, and I grew up playing all these old games on the NES system, so nostalgia is a big factor in why I'm drawn to the NES system. I got my first NES system in Christmas of 1989, which was a little bit further down the road of the NES's lifespan, but it still had plenty of good years left in it, as many of you know. The last official NES game release was in 1995, with 1994 being the majority of the last few games that were made. But my first system that I got was the famous Nintendo NES Action Set, which looks basically just like this. This isn't my original Action Set that I had as a kid, but this is what it looked like exactly. I had the newer version that had the oval seal on top of there, but this was it. Came with Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt, as many of you probably already know, the Zapper and 2 controllers. It was the basic set that a lot of people had, and I can't even begin to express how many countless hours I spent playing games on there. But let me talk a bit about some of the games that I had when I was a kid. I didn't have a huge library of games. I had maybe, I think, 10 or 15 or so. But one of my uncles actually owned a video store, and he used to send me games quite often. And I get to keep some of them, and other ones I would just send back when I was done playing with them. So I got to play a lot of the really hard to find rental releases that a lot of people you know as, like the Flintstones games, Bubble Bobble Part 2, games like that. But the first game I'm going to talk about is probably no surprise to you guys. It's one of my favorites that I've mentioned in some of my other videos. I've done a review on it. And that would be Solar Jetman in the Hunt of the Golden Warship, as you can see here. I have a sealed copy of this game. This is one of my favorites, made by Tradewest, released by Tradewest. It was developed by Rare, who are the makers of, as you know, Battletoads. This is a space shooter game where you travel to 13 different planets to collect fuel and other items in the hunt of getting pieces of the Golden Warship, where you fight against the end boss to save the universe. It's kind of like an asteroids-based game almost. You go around a little spaceship and shoot rocks and other alien life forms. A lot of fun there. Another game that I had gotten as a kid, which this one I just rented for a while, but I rented it quite a bit, and that was Ghoul School. A lot of you might not know much about this game, but it's kind of a quirky little game. You play this little punk kid named Spike. You can kind of see him on the back of the box there. He's got spiky hair and a baseball bat. But you go around and basically your high school is being invaded by all these mutant space aliens and whatnot, ghouls, ghosts, and goblins and whatnot. And you're out to save your girlfriend from the clutches of the principal headmaster, who is now a deformed monster. But it's a little bit of a repetitive game. It's really easy to get lost. There's over 100 rooms that you have to visit, and there's no rhyme or reason to the way the rooms go. You just have to basically, I used to draw maps of this thing when I played as a kid, same thing as I did for Solar Jetman. But in Solar Jetman, at least you had a mapping device, so you know where you could actually go and find items. Another game that I'd gotten, my parents had gotten for me one year for Christmas, and that was the ever-famous Donkey Kong Classics. A lot of you are probably familiar with this game. It's a port of the original Donkey Kong arcade game, and also of the second game, Donkey Kong Jr., 2-in-1 cartridge on here. Spent many great hours playing this game. My dad was a big fan of this game as well. But another game I want to talk about is Tetris. I don't have one on hand right here now, but Nintendo's Tetris was the version I had. A friend of mine had the 10-gen version, which I've always thought was superior, but I grew up with the NES version, so that's the one I had the most experience with. I used to stay up all night playing that game quite a bit, trying to beat my high score, get that big rocket ship to blast off, and see all the characters playing on the side of the screen. Tons of fun. Only bad thing, it didn't have 2-player. That's my only gripe I have to say about the Nintendo version compared to the Tengen version. But it's a great game, and on to the next game. We have everyone's favorite, Super Mario Brothers 2. Not necessarily, it was kind of a different game because it wasn't what people were expecting. As some of you may know, this was originally released on the Famicom Disk System as Doki Doki Panic, and Japan, the Nintendo of Japan, thought that the actual Super Mario Bros. 2, which we know as Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels from the Super Nintendo Mario All-Stars compilation, was actually the true Super Mario Bros. 2, and this was just Doki Doki Panic with Mario sprites laid over it, basically. But we have a lot to thank for this game. It was still a lot of fun at the time. I played this one probably almost as much as I played my favorite game, which I'll get to that one later. But it's still a really great game, even though it was kind of a rip-off from another game that Nintendo had previously made. Still a great classic, and you think without it we wouldn't have our beloved Sniffits and Shy Guys in the Mario universe. So I'm glad they made a port of that game and changed everything around. Alright, now we're going to get into some of the more harder to find, more rental release games. These ones I never owned as a kid, but I used to rent them all the time. First one that I rented countless times and probably could have almost bought with how many times I rented it was the Jetsons. I'm a big fan of all the classic Hanna-Barbera cartoon series, the Flintstones, Jetsons, Wacky Races, all those other different games. And of course, when I saw they had the games for them, I had to play them. And it's made by Taito, so we know it's good. It's a platformer game based around the Jetsons, basically. You're working for basically Space Sprocket, and you're fighting against Cogswell Cog and all his crazy creations. It's a really great game. I highly recommend this. It's a little bit hard to find, but well worth it in my opinion. Another game that I want to mention is the Flintstones, and this one I played quite a bit of as well too. I played the Surprise of Dinosaur Peak one a little bit as a kid, but this is the one I played the majority of the time, since the other one was a lot harder to find, and it wasn't released till 1994. And this one came out in 1991, so this one was around a lot and more readily available at the time. So this was the majority of my Flintstones game that I played. A really, really great game made by Taito as well, so it's a great platformer. Check it out. I still need to do a review on this and Dinosaur Peak, because they're some of my favorite games. Another kind of hard to find rental game that I played a lot as a kid was Wacky Races. And no matter what a lot of you may think, Wacky Races is not a racing game, it's a platformer. And I did a review on this one as well. It's a really great platformer. I highly recommend it, check it out. Spent lots of hours playing this game. It's an easier game, but I think it has a good replay value. I can sit down and complete it in about 45 minutes to an hour. So it's kind of good to have a game that you can just kind of blaze through every once in a while for something fun. And really the last game I want to talk about is probably not going to be any surprise to anyone, and that's Super Mario Bros. 3. Debatably the best game on the Nintendo NES system, if not one of the best games of all time. I don't have to speak too much about Mario 3, as I'm sure every one of you knows or has played it or seen it in any form. But it's definitely the best of the Mario series. I played that game more than anything. I can always remember I saved up my allowance for about 5 months so that I could go out and pick out the game. I didn't get it right when it was released, but I think I got it maybe 2 or 3 weeks after it came out. But I went into Walmart, and I'll never forget, I had all my coins rolled up and I had all these wads of dollar bills, and I felt so bad for the cash register person because they had to count out all this change so I could buy the game. But man, it was good times. But hey, I just want to say thank you to Nintendo and for bringing us the Nintendo Entertainment System. I've had a lot of great time playing it. Spent a lot of my childhood playing the system, and I still spend a lot of my life playing it right now as well too. It just goes to show that a classic truly never does die. I know some of you might not have been around when the NES first came out, and if you are skeptical, I say check it out. You won't be sorry. A lot of familiar franchises that you know of started out on the NES. Mario Brothers, Zelda, Donkey Kong in a certain respect. Final Fantasy had the first one on there, Dragon Warrior, also Dragon Quest in Japan. And I know there's others, but I just can't think of them at this time now. But hey, happy birthday to the NES. Thanks you guys for watching, and I'll check back with you next time. See ya.